Hi, I'm Tim Travis from Xbox Reviews and Verdicts, and today I'm reviewing Borderlands 2 from Gearbox. The original Borderlands became a sleeper hit in 2009 with its combination of first-person gunplay and Diablo-style loot collecting. What could have been a mere cult hit sold very well and made Borderlands 2 one of the most anticipated games of 2012. And like any good sequel, Borderlands 2 is meant to be bigger and better than the original. So what's the verdict? Let's find out.
So, you want to hear another story?
The original Borderlands was very sparse when it comes to story, and fans groaned about its ending. Here the story has been overhauled. After the opening of the vault from the first game, the rare element, Iridium, began to surface, once again prompting would-be vault hunters to travel to the planet of Pandora. Iridium also tempted the Hyperion Corporation to take over and exploit the planet. The story is actually good, and the vault hunters from the first game return as pivotal characters in the resistance against Hyperion. And we finally get to know what the deal is with the mysterious angel. If you played the original, you'll be very surprised at what ends up happening to the returning characters and keeps you guessing along the way. But this doesn't mean you had to have played the first to get the story here. Another great decision is the inclusion of a true antagonist, Handsome Jack. Think of him like Bill Lumbergh, the boss from Office Space, but an even bigger jerk and wants to kill you.
Seeing the problem here, you're still alive. So if you could just do me a favor and off yourself, that'd be great. Thanks, Pumpkin.
Like the original, the cast of characters is outrageous, even more so this time around. You know your game is screwed up when the explosives expert is a 13-year-old girl who enjoys tea parties. This is all helped by some hilarious and oftentimes crude dialogue that the base game of the first game only hinted at.
Now this ain't gonna make a lot of sense, but just bear with me. First, find some laxative.
I'd love to explain a gag involving an AI core and a radio, but it's too funny to spoil. Only one problem. Since most of the dialogue comes from radio transmissions and pre-recorded messages, that dialogue can get drowned out when you're in the thick of the game's combat, which is too bad, because if it wasn't a problem, this would be the funniest game I've played since Portal.
I sound pleased about this. It's only because my programmers made this my default tone of voice. I'm actually quite depressed.
There are 4 new playable characters, and they are a lot cooler than those of the original. Salvador the Gunzerker can wield 2 weapons for a guns blazing approach. Axton the Commando can throw down a turret, but unlike Roland from the first game, he can recall the turret to allow its cooldown to speed up. Maya, the game's new siren, can phase lock an enemy to keep it still, and Zero the Assassin can spawn a decoy while turning invisible, then attack an enemy for massive damage. Otherwise, the combat is like that of a good shooter, and you still level up the character's diverse set of skill trees. Zero can be a sniper or an in-your-face swordsman, Maya can focus on healing or all-out destruction, and Salvador can flip the bird. The choice is yours. There are also some welcome tweaks. The gunplay is just better. There's no more fall damage, and grenades and melee attacks are far more useful than ever. The only unwelcome element is bullet travel time, which is manageable in most skirmishes, but makes killing flying enemies a bigger pain than it has to. Also, vehicles handle a lot better and are far more fun to use than before. There are 2 new features that connect all of your characters together. One is Claptrap's Secret Stash, which allows you to share gear between your classes, and a new badass ranking system that gives you stat bonuses that pervade from character to character for completing challenges. Now, I enjoyed the original Borderlands, but I had gripes with it, and Gearbox has addressed practically everything. First, playing alone was often uninteresting and rather repetitive. Now that the combat system has been improved so significantly and feels rather kinetic, if you don't have friends to play with, you can still have a great time. Next, a common complaint was the environments. There was only one for the majority of Borderlands: arid, sparse deserts and badlands. Borderlands 2 announces its intention to change that at the beginning by placing you in a frigid Arctic landscape, but you'll be traveling to the grassy highlands, caustic caverns, a Hyperion city, amongst a few others. It's diverse enough in this sense that once you do return to environments reminiscent of the first game, it's actually refreshing. Enemies also left something to be desired in the original. There were soldiers, bandits, bugs, and that was about it. Now the hostile locals and wildlife are far more varied. Hulking Bullymons and Crystallix along with the sneaky Stalkers round out the selection of fauna. And the new enemies like the Suicide Psychos and durable shield-carrying Nomads keep you on your toes. Hell, the variety of midget enemies are even more adorably offensive than ever. And Hyperion's selection of robots work together as constructors are tough and spawn new bad guys, and surveyors maintain their allies. Now, many won't like me saying this, but my biggest complaint with the first game was with the game's biggest draw, its selection of guns. Yes, Borderlands held the world record for the most guns in a video game, but the problem was that you would be seeing the same few gun bodies over and over with different damage types, stats, sights, fire rates, and so on. Basically, a 3-round burst combat rifle would play very similar to another one, but one was just better than the other. Yes, the guns in Borderlands 2 are still randomly generated, but there is just an insane amount of new variables. I was finding new stuff all the way through to the end. The manufacturer who makes the gun now has a more dramatic role in how each gun plays. Jacob's weapons fire as fast as you can pull the trigger, doll guns fire in bursts when aiming down sights, Mollywand's selection looks like they're from the Mass Effect series and always deal elemental damage, and Tediore guns aren't reloaded, but thrown like grenades, explode, and then regenerate back in your hands to keep shooting. I could go on and on about the new variables, like other manufacturers, chain gun assault rifles, the new elemental damage type called Slag, and the ridiculously rare E-Tech weapons, but it would take too much time. I haven't even mentioned the variety of shields, some that can do damage to enemies who get too close, and grenades, like ones that create a singularity, pull enemies towards it, explode, setting enemies on fire. It's crazy. Co-op returns, and you can play online or split screen. It's worth noting that split screen has been improved by now allowing the split to be horizontal. Co-op is pretty similar to the original, and you can now trade with other players, and the game still ups the difficulty by giving enemies an almost comical amount of health. If you want to play with friends, your characters should be within 2 or 3 levels of each other, so you're going to want to coordinate. But you can still search for games in matchmaking. Gearbox has also added character customization so you don't look too similar to other characters if they're part of the same class. Graphically, the game doesn't look that much better than the original from a technical standpoint. It's really about the variety of new environments, and the cell shading is still awesome. But some areas look rather bland. The music, however, is far more electronic than the original, which I have no gripes with. There were some frustrations I had, however. One area has confusing level design, I once encountered a glitch where I couldn't turn a quest in, and as I mentioned before, some environments are bland and dialogue can be cut out. Also, you're still unnecessarily handicapped and fight for your life because you can't throw grenades or aim down sights. The difficulty is also a little unbalanced towards the end of the game. Quests will say you have the skill level necessary, but when you face a certain boss, you realize you need to be a few levels higher. But with multiple characters to play as, a lengthy campaign with tons of quests that you can play again in playthrough 2, now called True Vault Hunter mode, that still ups the difficulty and gives you better loot, it's hard to ignore the value. We rarely see developers take 3 years to put out a sequel to already solid games, and the time Gearbox has spent was worth it. Borderlands 2 is simply better than the original in most every way and will please fans and newcomers alike. Thanks for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, follow the blog, and check out the Facebook page. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy my future videos.
So just turn 'em into me and you'll be